Hello everybody out there in YouTube land and welcome to another expanded deck guide. Today we're going to be talking about Calvin Wright, kind of talking about notable cards for him for all of the cycles that are currently released at the time of this video. So if you're watching in 2028 and you're like, you don't have cards from the Golden Cthulhu set, well that's because that doesn't exist yet. So we're just going to be talking about everything up to this point. And Bryn, once again, if of the three of us, I would have to call you the Kelvin expert. So I'm going to throw Kelvin to you to chat about him, and then we'll start going cycle by cycle.
So normally I start by looking at the leftmost card image there, the numbers up at the top. But this time we got zeros, which is kind of weird. But not to worry, we get +1 brain and +1 book for each horror on us, and +1 punch and +1 foot for each damage on us, which can be a little bit annoying to track. I suggest using dice. It really helps, rather than having to stop and count the little cardboard tokens every time.
Yeah.
We got a star effect of +0, which is admittedly much worse than most star effects, but we get to either heal a damage or a horror us or take one. It has to be direct. So don't choose that if it'll kill you, obviously. We got 6 and 6, pretty low numbers for a survivor, but if they were any higher, we'd be busted.
Yeah.
So there you are. Standard deck size. We get to play with survivor cards 0 to 5, spirit cards 0 to 3, and neutral cards 0 to 5. So spirit cards are a little tough to quantify without using like ArkhamDB or some other database, or even just, having all the cards in front of you.
You're one of those people who sort your cards by trait.
Yeah, right? Like, people mostly don't do that, I think.
I hope.
Yeah, I really hope so. That sounds like a nightmare. But we also have our unique asset here. Until the end of time, it is a one-costed card that commits for a punch and a wild, but really don't. This isn't one of them unique assets that is a glorified skill card. This is much better than that. It can soak 2 and 2, and direct damage and direct horror may be assigned to until the end of time. So, keeps you pretty safe when you're sitting at like 1 or 2. Which happens maybe more than you wanted to. And we've got the voice of the messenger. As a revelation, you must either choose one, take 1 direct damage and suffer a physical trauma, or take 1 direct horror and suffer a mental trauma. Now this, is it bad? Is it good?
Yes.
That really depends. That depends. Yes. Yeah. That's the answer. The trauma is dangerous, especially if you're playing in a high trauma campaign such as the Forgotten Age. And the direct damage can be a little scary if you're riding real close to the edge on your numbers. Because while having 5s is sweet, you got to bear in mind that the voice of the messenger might show up and just blow you up.
Yeah.
It's possible.
And that's why Until the End of Time is so good, because it's weakness protection for at least the direct damage or horror. It doesn't stop the trauma, though, and that is something to be aware of. Both Travis and I have played Kelvin, and both of us had to switch him out in the campaign with someone else. Because it can get really spooky. He can pretty much become useless if you draw Voice of the Messenger too much, or if you have gotten too much trauma in other ways, like by being defeated because you're sitting at 1 for all your damage and your horror for the remainder of the game.
Yeah. One thing I will say before we dive into the cards, be aware of what's in the Mythos deck. Because there are many sets that just decrease your maximum number by 1.
Yes.
And it does not matter what you have. If you have 5 damage on you and you draw that, you die.
Yeah,
That's all there is.
There was a post about that just yesterday on the subreddit and the Board Game Geek forums. It was like, so this just reduces me? My health? Do I have a chance to react? No, you're gone.
Yeah. The one thing you can do is Ward of Protection is a spirit.
Yep.
So But once it's in play, that's just it. You die, do not pass go. You do get to collect a nifty trauma, though.
You do, which could be good, question mark?
Might be. Depends where you are in the campaign.
Yeah. So if you're watching this, you're probably wondering, is the plan with Kelvin just to get to 5 damage and 5 horror marked and then get soak? Yeah, you nailed it pretty much. Like, that's the goal. There's really not much more to him, right? And like, this is where the his strength is he has the potential for very high stats, and the weaknesses, niche deck building, and as Travis so eloquently put in his guide, which you can find in the description below, may die. Just could go. And that's it for Kelvin.
Yeah. Slightest provocation.
Yeah. All right.
Any reason.
Let's dive into the core set first. So Travis, I'll throw this one to you. This is the end of it. What the? There we go. Go for it, Travis.
It's the wrong way, Justin.
It is.
So first up, we got the aforementioned Ward of Protection, one of the spirits that Calvin can play. Great card for him. Gives you cancels like a particularly troublesome card, and also gives you a brain damage to boost up your book getting skill. And your brain. We got Leather Coat, which is just some basic soak for the body slot. Doesn't have a ton of competition for the most part. Rabbit's Foot is great early in the game because your stats are probably going to be garbage and you're going to fail lots of tests, so draw lots of cards. Lucky, also good for similar reasons. The Rabbit's Foot is good because you're going to fail tests, your stats are garbage. Also, it's just lucky, it's just a good card. Same thing with Look What I Found. Just a good card. Flashlight is like somewhat uniquely useful for Calvin, where you early in the campaign where you just have garbage stats, and this lets you kind of help until you can get going. Because if you use it on a location that has shroud value 2 or less, then it reduces the shroud value to 0, and you just get to succeed unless you draw the alpha. Emergency cash, just money, and guts is always good.
Guts is always good. And Travis, I'll throw these ones still to you because most of them are still staples.
Okay. Calvin, I think, might be the only... Maybe not the only, but there are very few investigators who get the full suite of these neutral skills in their guide. Because you can really make any of your skills work, and they all need help.
Yeah.
We got Upgrade Lucky here. It's just a better version of Lucky Level 0. And we got Upgrade Will Survive, which is very strong with Calvin, as especially as you get later into the campaign. Your stats are going to be around 4 or 5, kind of just all the time. And Will to Survive makes so you can just do like a full turn, and you don't have to worry about anything. If you have 5s in your stats, it's probably high enough to, like, discounting any other boosts you have. That's probably good enough to do the thing you're trying to do. And Will to Survive just ensures that's going to happen.
Yeah.
And then we got our Bulletproof Vest or Elder Sign Amulet, which are the most bread and butter soak options you can find.
Yeah. Another thing about Will to Survive, too, on higher difficulties, some of those tokens just say take 1 horror when you draw them. So that's a good way to not do that, especially later in the campaigns, as Travis said.
It is also a very good way to leverage your high numbers. Because, how many tests are harder than 5?
Not too many. They exist, but not too many.
Correct.
All right, on to the Dunwich Legacy, and we got a staple here, Peter Sylvester, but Peter Sylvester is notably good in Kelvin because of the text, after your turn ends, heal 1 horror from Peter Sylvester. So when you are at the point where you have your 5 horror marked on you, and you can't take any more horror, you have your Until the End of Time in play, Peter is now here to take the remainder of that horror for you, so you just don't die. He also boosts up your stats, your foot and your brain, which is nice because more stats is a good thing. Rise to the Occasion is very notable in in Kelvin because it has the text, commit to a skill test you are performing, and only if the difficulty of that test is at least 2 higher than your base skill. As Bryn said, most tests don't go over 5, and most tests also usually hover around 2. And 0 is your base skill value, so you'll be able to commit this to the majority, if not like all of the tests you want to take. This also still, even if you have 3 damage on you, and for example, your fist is 3, your base value is still 0, so Rise to the Occasion can still be committed. One of the level 3 spirit cards is Stand Together. It's choose another investigator location. Both you and the investigator draw 2 cards and gain 2 resources. Cards and resources, hard to say no to. Just more of those is a good thing. Also is a Guts. Commits for brains if you don't need cards or resources for some reason. Like maybe your rabbit's foot is just popping off like crazy and you're like, I don't need any more of these, but what I need is to pass this brain test or I die. Fire Axe. This is a tool that, especially once you get to, once your like fist is 6 or is like 5, you can use this to fight pretty easily, and then you can just spend your last few resources to get there, and then the pump is not as needed as it is for other investigators who use Fire Axe, so it is a good weapon of choice for Kelvin if you wanted to go that way. Likewise with Dark Horse, your stats can become even higher. Turn your 5s into 6s with Dark Horse. Okay. Red Glove Man is also pretty neat in Kelvin. So it gives you a bunch of soak when he's in play, which we're going to hear the word soak a lot in this video because it's very important to Kelvin. Soaking is basically just a card that can take damage and horror for you so you don't have to. But what this guy also does is you get to choose 2 of your skills to set their base value to 6. And you still get your bonus on top of that. So assuming you have 5 damage on you and you choose Fist for one of your things, your Fist is now 11. That's a big number. That's a double-digit number. That number do be big. Flare is a good option if you want to have an exile tool to fight and deal a bunch of damage, or to find an ally like, say, Peter Sylvester or Jessica Hyde, who we're going to be talking about in the future. And then Charisma and Relic Hunter are just 2 staples that you're going to want, especially the Charisma if you are planning on going Peter and Jessica to keep you alive, or if you want like Peter and any other ally, or Jessica and any other ally. It's just something you'll probably end up picking up in Kelvin. All right, Bryn, here's Carcosa for you.
All right. We got to let me handle this. It's in the Staples video, but this one also pulls double duty here, where not only do we get to protect our teammates, but maybe we get to just grab their grasping claws and grasping hands and be like, cool, take damage, though. I can't pass that test. We got Resourceful. Getting cards back. It's good. The Cherished Keepsake. It's a mirror of the leather coat, and you do need something to take damage because it's not like you're just going to get to 4s or 5s in your stats and just stop taking damage. The game's going to continue attempting to do damage to you. You need ways to mitigate that. We got Say Your Prayers, Desperate Search, Reckless Assault, and Run for Your Life. These all have one thing in common. Well, more than one thing in common, actually. I mean, like, they all have the same trait and the same card type and stuff like that. But you can only commit them if you have 3 or fewer remaining sanity. We only have 6 to start with, so 3 is very much not a stretch. And honestly, if we don't have 3 horror on us, probably something's gone wrong.
Well, you let me handle this. The Rotting Remains from your teammate. Fail it. Take 3 horror. Boom. All your desperate skills are online.
Yeah. I do think that the punch and the foot one are better than the other 2, because having the horror on you means that you already have good brain and book. Mm-hmm. But with these, you might not have, the game does damage however the game will. You don't get to control that aspect so much. And those help you make up for those games where you're taking a bunch of horror, but you're not getting any damage, so you can't make your other numbers good. We got Fight or Flight. It's good for the same reason. It's 1-costed fast play only during your turn. Until the end of the round, you get +X punch and +X foot, where X is the amount of horror on you. So this one kind of lets you double dip, really. I mean, if you've got 4s, just like across the board, you get to play the game with 8s on your punch and run. It's just good.
Just good.
Yeah. Does that make it a particularly strong card? No. but like many cards in Calvin, it's better than it should be.
I think it's a nice card in, especially like a level 0 Calvin, because you're not going to have trauma on you, and the game also might not give you what you want. You're like, okay, I'm ready to fight. Give me some damage, and the game's like, nah, how about you take some horror instead? And this lets you take advantage of that.
I have definitely found myself pinned by a whippoorwill.
Calvin's worst enemy.
Yeah, and it's just like, oh, cool. So like my punch number never gets bigger, but I also will die.
Yeah. That's funny. That is funny. All right, Travis, why don't you take the rest of these Carcosa cards?
Okay. We got I'll See You in Hell, which is one of the two ways you have to guarantee a trauma of a certain type for yourself while also dying productively. This card doesn't see too much play, but it commits for 2 fists in a worst case scenario, which is just fine. It lets you defeat each non-elite enemy engaged with you, and then you are also defeated and suffer physical trauma. So, some guaranteed heart damage. Next up, we got Test of Will. This one is just more Ward of Protection, which is, as previously discussed, good when you get into the later stages of the campaign. You don't want to just get gorped by the encounter deck. We got Devil's Luck. This one lets you cancel up to 10 damage and or horror just dealt to you and exile it. There is a level 0 card called Perseverance coming up that is very similar to this. It is generally better, but there are some builds where I feel like Devil's Luck could have a place if you want to lean into the exile stuff. There's some good stuff there for Calvin. Next up, we got the level 2 War Protection. Very good card. Just lets you do it for anyone instead of just you. So, Ancient Evils. Good card. We got our level 2 newspaper here. This one, 1 minute to play, takes up 1 hand slot. Comes for $2. And you get +2 book while investigating if you have no clues. There's a reaction where you discover 1 more clues at your location. If you have no clues, you can discover an additional clue at your location. This is the kind of card that really goes great in Calvin. We just kind of do. I don't want to say what you can, but a little bit of everything is a better way to put it.
Jack of all trades.
Yeah. If you're more of a fight heavy Calvin, this is a fantastic just random clue grabbing card to get because you can get the easy 3 free clues off of it per scenario about. And then last we got Key of Use, which can take 4 brain damage for you, and as previously discussed, Soak is really good.
And also, while this is the most we're going to talk about Key of Use on any investigator, also while soaking, it's also going to boost your skills up even more.
I'd say that sounds pretty good.
Yeah, that does sound pretty good, doesn't it? All right. Let's move on to the Forgotten Age. His cycles, so you're probably thinking he probably gets a lot here, doesn't he? Yeah, he does, kind of, question mark. He gets the Perseverance. As Travis said, this is a card. It soaks. It doesn't soak. It stops you from dying. So when you would be assigned damage or horror that would defeat you, you cancel up to 4 of that damage and or horror. It's kind of like soaking, but not really. This card's really good. Like the Devil's Luck costs experience. It costs 1. It can stop 10, but you're really not usually dying to 10 that often. So Perseverance fits in really there. Second Wind heals you damage. If 2 of you have drawn a Treachery, then you draw a card. You are going to at times also want to heal, even if it does seem counterproductive, right? Because it's better to not die than it is to die with 6 stats. People might disagree, but I think, they're just flat out wrong. So you could consider some healing in your deck here. We got Yodel. What he does is the top half, the skill icons on the top card of your discard pile can be contributed as long as they're not wild to a test. But he also can discard the top card of your deck, and he has been changed to be once per phase. This is a tool you can use to try to fish out your weakness, the Voice of the Messenger. You could basically just discard cards from the top of your deck until you miss it, and then you're like, okay, until you discard it, and then you're like, all right, time to go. I will say I played in this casino, and the house always wins. You could try it out. I've heard that there is some success, but it is just random chance, right? So maybe I just got the cursed Yodel, but it is approach you can do with Yodel there. In addition, just the boosting to your skills is also still relevant.
Like, yeah, I wouldn't play him just for the discard, trying to discard your weakness stuff. I think that's not good. Very reasonable to play him if you're playing a high amount of skills, or he really shines in the desperate deck where you can get double your 4 symbol things.
Yeah, it doesn't even need to be like I don't even think just like just if you're playing like even like a Perseverance, right? It ends up in your discard pile. Just even like more guts. I do agree after trying it out, and what everyone told me about Yodel, don't go to the Yodel casino. He will cheat you. Last thing we got here. I'm not jaded. I'm not angry. Don't worry about it. We got against all odds. When you perform a skill test with a difficulty higher than your base skill value, hey, that sounds like every skill test in existence. You get to reveal X additional chaos tokens for the test and choose one to resolve and ignore the rest, where X is the difference between the test's difficulty and your base skill value. This is kind of like the card we just talked about. The name always slips my mind. The guy with the mop, where you don't have to draw any tokens. We just said it literally
Will survive.
Yeah, thank you. It's kind of like it does an impression of that card for one test. You are probably like I can't imagine a situation where you would fail with this, so it is something you want to consider if you really want to pass certain tests. It's like a big bomb that you can use to get through there. Here, Brandon, here's a few more from the Forgotten Age.
All right, we got Take Heart. This one, it's a staple, but you're going to be failing tests. Zeros do not pass tests. So this is just a way to help you make some use of your first couple of turns in the game. We got Cornered. This one turns every card in your deck into an Unexpected Courage. There's, just kind of good. Helps you make use out of the turns where you're at kind of the midway numbers, where you got 2s and 3s and you look like a bad Lola Hayes. We got Blood Eclipse. I don't think this card is actually good in any other Investigator. I feel fairly safe in that claim. That being said, I'm not saying that it's good here either. However, it can do a lot of damage all at once. As an additional cost to play it, you got to take up to 3 damage, which is kind of that magic thing. However, the fight also uses Brain instead of Punch, so the 3 punch you just got, that's not doing anything here. You got to already have high Brain. However, you get +1 Brain and deal +1 damage for the attack for each of the damage taken as a part of the card's cost. So you don't actually have to take the full 3, but if you don't, you're a baby.
Yeah. You heard it here first. You heard it here first. Bryn doesn't lie.
We got Alter Fate. This card just lets you discard any encounter card in play. Non-weakness treachery card, I guess. Not encounter card, because then you can discard
an enemy
locations, and that would be sick.
Location. The agenda.
Yeah, that would be something, wouldn't it?
Oh, get rid of the scenario reference card. Boom.
You can discard a treachery card, which is very handy for a multitude of reasons. Not the least of which, Calvin often has a great deal of trouble getting rid of things like Frozen in Fear. Especially for the first several turns of the game, where you're kind of just like, cool, so I play 2/3 of a turn, and that's just what I do. It's fast. It costs 1. Card's gone. Don't worry about it. But the Time Worn brand, it's a staple weapon. It's a way to make your big punch number do a little bit more. You can also use it to add your Brain to your punch number, which could result in a comically large number. Only once per game, though.
And if it defeats an elite enemy, you draw a bunch of cards. You're just slop them up. You love it.
You love it.
All right, Travis, we are into the Circle Undone. I'll throw these ones to you.
Cool. First up, we've got Track Shoes. Track Shoes fulfills a very very important niche for Calvin. where you can build an incredibly strong resource engine for him with the 2 drawing thins and the track shoes, especially with how high your stats just get. You can it's not uncommon to like activate 2 drawing thins and then just pass your test and get to move for free. Also gives you +1 foot, which can push you up to like 6, so you're like a real investigator. Not sure
It's
to
a
play
real
2,
boy.
but like, yeah, as a 1 of it's very, very strong for Calvin, I think.
Yeah.
Next up, we got Meat Cleaver. This one is a weapon that gives you a bonus if you have less than 3 sanity, or 3 or less sanity, and also enables you to take horror and sometimes heal horror. These are all things that Calvin wants, and this is probably the weapon you should look at using. Yeah. And we got the drawing thin itself. This is a 0-cost asset that whenever you initiate a skill test, you can exhaust it to increase the difficulty of the test by 2, and then you either gain 2 resources or draw a card. You can trigger multiple of these on the same test, make it 4 harder, and this card is exceptionally strong for Calvin because you're going to fail anyway. A lot of it. Either your stats are so low you're failing anyway, or they're so high you're passing it. Like, next up we got Ghastly Revelation. I got to talk about both of them. This is the mirror to I'll See You in Hell. Commits for 2 books. This one, instead of defeating all the enemies, you get to discover 3 clues at your location, then you take a mental trauma. It's good for very similar reasons. The other one's good, but it gets you clues instead. Wow.
Yeah.
You get to
Yeah,
give your
this one-
clues to someone else.
This one
That's
does have an
important.
extra reason that it's good, though. If you're playing a clue-focused Calvin deck and you find yourself close to death and uncertain that you can prevent such an occurrence, you can just play this card to scoop up a bunch of clues, hand your clues to somebody else, dust off your hands, and
And then jump in the incinerator.
go grab a beer or do whatever you do when you're not playing the game.
Yep.
Hang out with the cat, whatever.
Yeah, go see Russell.
Yeah, hang out with Russell. Next we've got Trial by Fire. Another great card. There's lots of good cards for Calvin this cycle. Wow. This is a 3-cost event. You play all during your turn. You get to pick one of your skills. You set that base value to 5. This one lets you hit like actually astronomical skill values because it sets your base value to 5, so you still get the bonus for however much damage or horror you have on you. So you can pick, if you have 5 damage on you, you can be like, yeah, I'll set my base punch to 5, and you still get +5, and you'll have 10 punch for that turn. That's a lot.
Now that you say it, like literally, like all of these cards, like this is a good cycle for Calvin. It's like they realize they're like,
Really
oh wait a minute.
Oh man, Justin, don't tell anyone, but we should definitely make Travis play through a campaign where one of us is playing Calvin and the other one's playing Bob Jenkins with the purpose of selling him shotguns.
Okay, yeah, I could do that.
Cool. As long as it works.
Look, you can't control these things.
It can influence them pretty heavily, though. Anyway, next up we got 5 Pentacles. Calvin's the only one in the world who wants this. Gives you +1 health, +1 sanity, takes up your garbage tarot slot. And it's not garbage anymore because of 9 rods, but still good for Calvin. Lets you hit 6s instead of 5s. Or if you're willing to go the
hit
distance,
5s.
yeah, you can get to 7s. Wow. Next up we have I've Had Worse level 2. This is another great card for Calvin. Functions as economy, and also as you get into the late game, you're not going to want to take damage or horror very often, if at all. And this helps that not happen. It's good. Lastly, we got You Catastrophe here. This one is fast. You play with Reveal Chaos Token and reduce your skill value to 0 during a test, including the auto fail. You get to cancel that token and treat it as a star instead. This one can like get you out of jam if you need to heal, because you're gonna die or you're concerned about it. It can also let you kind of like get going at the start of a scenario if you purchase it early, where you use it to pass a test that you shouldn't, and then you get to like take a damage or horror. It's also a fantastic insurance for the late game to ensure you don't just get gorped by the auto fail when you draw Wrong Remains.
Yeah.
Very important for that kind of stuff.
Oh, Dream Eaters. Okay. On to Dream Eaters, we got Solemn Vow. So this is a myriad card, which means you get 3 for the price of 1, which in this case, if you build your deck, is free. If the owner of Solemn Vow is at your location, you can exhaust Solemn Vow to move 1 damage or horror from a card you control to a card that Investigator controls. And this is one that you play under control of another Investigator, so they can take damage from them to give to you to make you stronger. Wow. It's an option you could consider with this. I don't think it's like... there's obviously better... Like, there's other ways to get stuff. You could just like be failing tests, but this is a way that if you want to ensure you have a plan, this is something you can do. Scrounge for supplies is a staple. Return a level 0 card to your hand from your discard pile. It's going to be there for your level 0 decks, I imagine, a good chunk. Like returning a Lucky, or even like depending on what your deck is, like a Look What I Found. It's going to do its work, and then it'll eventually get upgraded out. Here we have Jessica Hyde. She is like Peter Sylvester. She heals damage that is on her at the end of each turn, and she gives you +1 fist. You're going to hear a lot of people when they say talking about playing Kelvin, that they usually end up playing Jessica Hyde and Peter Sylvester, which is admittedly like kind of boring, but it'll keep you alive and it'll bump up your stats. And it also will allow you to like potentially even stay not needing to be at 1 and 1 remaining for your stats. So they're very good at keeping you alive. We got
They're
Brute
also
Force.
very good with the Solemn Vow.
Yes, very good with the Solemn Vow. Yeah, definitely. We got Brute Force, Sharp Vision, and Expeditious Retreat. These are all skills that commit for a fist, a book, or a foot, going from left to right. And if Brute Force is committed during a basic fight, you get +2 fist, and if you succeed by 2 or more, this deals +2 damage. Sharp Vision follows a similar plan. If you're doing a basic investigate, +2 books, succeed by 2 or more, gain an additional clue. And Expeditious Retreat gives you 2 for a basic evade. If you succeed by 2 or more, automatically evade another enemy at your location. These are really nice because your stats are going to be so high, and especially with the +3, you are going to hit these and you're going to deal a bunch of damage, get a bunch of clues, evade a bunch of enemies, and you're going to look good doing it. Next up, we got the Black Cat, which is like Apex Soak. Everyone else soaks, but like the Black Cat soaks with pure power. So anytime he has 3 and 3, and anytime you reveal a tablet, a squid, or an Elder Sign token, you may choose to use the following effects. So it's either the cat takes 1 direct damage, -1, -1 the cat takes 1 direct damage, or +5 heal all damage and horror from the Black Cat. At a certain point, as Bryn was saying, like the Elder Sign for Kelvin is like not crazy exciting. And replacing it with a +5, heal all damage from your soak, sounds like a pretty good deal. He is expensive, but he is really good. And then we got Nightmare Bauble. It's another staple we talk about in the staple video, which you can find in the description down below. And it's just good. It's auto-fail protection, which, as Travis said on the previous slide, is good for making sure you don't just die to a Rotting Remains. What it also adds is a Dream Parasite, which reduces your skill value for a test. It's a skill you have to commit. And that's not a big deal because your numbers are going to be so high that the downside of this one isn't really a problem. Okay, on to Innsmouth. Bryn, I'll throw these ones to you.
All right, we got the Mariner's Compass. This one is one of the clearest examples of the fact that gaining clues is stronger than damage. Because it's the Fire Axe, but for investigating. But it costs 3 instead of 1, and you have to exhaust it to use it. And when you spend resources during the investigation test, you only get +1 instead of +2. So it's like worse in every way, but also better.
Yeah.
Because clues are more important. Look at the Butterfly Effect. This one is fast. You play when a Chaos token with a symbol is revealed during a skill test at your location before resolving its effects. You or the performing investigator may either commit a skill or return a card they committed to this test to their hand. It's just, kind of neat. You can use this to protect cards like Brute Force, or protect yourself with cards like the Desperate Skills, where you can wait to see what you flip, and if you flip the squid, and the squid says -4 if you fail or Mordoth attacks you, then maybe get +4. Yeah.
Yeah, I'll just add this to that.
You got the Spirit of Humanity, which is probably the coolest card for Calvin to come out recently.
Yeah.
This does like all kinds of stuff. It's a 2-costed asset that takes up our arcane slot, which honestly there's kind of not really any competition for. And as a lightning bolt, you can exhaust it to take 1 damage and 1 horror to add 2 bless tokens to the chaos bag, which your teammates will probably not even notice, but you can pretend like you're helping them to make your numbers bigger.
I'm helping.
Yeah, and if one of them is playing a bless deck, you are actually helping. The other mode on it is as a lightning bolt, you can exhaust it and add 2 curse tokens to the bag to heal 1 damage and 1 horror, which feels like it's going the wrong way. But also, you really got to make sure you don't die, because if you're dead, you don't do anything. Doesn't matter how big your numbers used to be. Got the Signum Crucis. This one is a practiced blessed skill. You can commit it only to a skill test you are performing if the difficulty of that test is higher than your base skill value, which if the difficulty of the test is 0, I mean,
Don't play it.
kind of doesn't matter.
Don't play it.
But yeah, after you commit it, you add X bless tokens to the bag, where X is the difference between the difficulty and your base value, which is, in Calvin's unique case, just the difficulty of the test. We got the Riestrad, which is metal as shit. For 0, you get to fight when you initiate the attack. You add up to 3 curse tokens into the chaos bag. For each curse token added to the bag, you get +1 punch and deal +1 damage for this attack. I think this card is mostly better than playing something like Blood Eclipse. Mostly. Lastly, I guess we're not even going to talk about Calvin as a bless or curse archetype, because he can't actually play any of the good cards. He doesn't really get access to anything. You have red cards, that's it.
Yeah.
The red bless cards are, well, some of them are strong.
Yeah,
many of them are not.
Yeah, like Ancient Covenant's the
Yeah.
best covenant, but your only real way of putting stuff in, apart from the bad Keep Faith, is Spirit of Humanity and Signum Crucis. And while you might be thinking, I can Signum Crucis and Drawing Thin to put in a bunch of bless tokens and it'll be so cool. That's a lot of work for when you're probably already passing the test because your numbers are so high anyway.
This is the truth. Although Spirit of Humanity does have Calvin in the artwork, so
yeah, and it's good for him beyond just the. It's like, as you said, you're helping the blessed support. You're supporting the blessed archetype. You are not the blessed archetype.
Probably not.
Calvin's ability to use the Spirit of Humanity makes him one of the best supporting characters for people who are playing Bless and Curse, or really good if someone wants to play Paradoxical Outcome. Also, your teammates, if you're using Spirit of Humanity for just for fun, your teammates can just play a Covenant.
Yep.
And get benefit from it.
Yeah.
I do think that Calvin playing the full on can't really play a full on support the table bless archetype because he doesn't really have access to the blue cards. He is one of the best users of the red covenant.
Yep.
Because his stats are typically so high that when you draw your bless token, you just stop. You're just going to pass every time.
I'm good.
It is mostly better than your own star effect.
Yeah.
Yeah, because even if you just build Spirit of Humanity and then you also put in an Ancient Covenant, odds are you'll probably get value out of it. But you don't need to go looking and be like, okay, I have an Ancient Covenant, time to put some Keep Faiths in here. You don't need to do that.
Yeah, don't play Predestined.
Don't play Predestined. Good call.
What about Versatile into the Blessed Blade?
No.
No.
No. Kelvin is already so inconsistent as it is. I'm versatile, baby. Then he just gets hit by a truck, and that's it for him. Alright, on to the edge of the earth. Travis, I'll throw these ones to you.
Okay. First up, we got actually got some pretty neat stuff here. You got Toto. Spirit lets you fight, and you're automatically successful. As an additional cost, perform the action the chosen enemy gets to attack you. This is really good for Calvin for several reasons. It lets you contribute and solve monsters early in the game, and also gets your stats going. It's nice, great little pickup for him. Next up, we got bandages, which 3 uses if has supplies, throw it away. When after Investigator or an ally at your location takes 1 more damage, you can spend a supply to heal damage from that card. It's a nice way to extend the life of some of your soak as well as your own life in some situations. Just a solid level 0 card. Then we got Hit Me. Hit Me is actually probably one of my favorite cards from the new expansion. It's a very, very fun card. Is it particularly good in Calvin? Like, not any more than it is good in some other investigators. In fact, it might be a little bit worse, but it's a very fun card. Yeah.
No, I agree. I agree completely.
Yeah. And we got the Talisman of Protection. This takes up your Arcane slot, which, as previously mentioned, not much competition, really. And it's fast. You can only play it during your turn. You can play it under anyone's control, but if you're playing this, it's probably for you because you're playing Calvin. And what it does is when you would die, you can discard it to cancel up to 2 of the damage or horror that would kill you. So, just another way to keep you alive. It's a good option at like level 0, where you can just dump into play as well, and then you don't have to think about it for a while. Next up, we got some sledgehammers. -1 punch isn't as big of a deal for Calvin as it is for a lot of the other red investigators because he can quite comfortably get to 5 most games. Whether he's actually at 5 because he's got 5 damage, or he's got 4 and like a boost from a Jessica Hyde or something like that, which makes the first fight action a little more attractive, and the second fight action is like usually just fine. So, then we got the level 4 one, which is, honestly, it's just another fun weapon. I did a lot of these guides before we'd played with a lot of the cards, and Sledgehammer I still think is a fine option for Calvin, but he will struggle a little bit compared to some of the Guardians who have movement effects to abuse it.
Yeah.
Like
that top action is still just like it's good damage output. The downside of it though is it takes up 2 hands, which, but yeah, I mean even just the top half is still that's just damage output, baby.
Yeah, like don't let that discourage you from trying it. But
yeah.
And we got Professor William Webb. This guy comes in with secrets. When you successfully investigate, you can exhaust him and spend 1 of the secrets to get an item back. Or get a clue from a connecting location, I believe.
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah.
And the level 0 one, you do that instead of getting a clue, and then the level 2 one, you get that in addition to getting the clue.
Yeah.
Yeah. Survivor has a number of nice cards that Calvin can get back now. In particular, the Ice Pick, which should be coming up on the next page, is really, really strong to recur a couple times in the game. There's a couple other options that you could play if you wanted to play this guy, like items that throw themselves away or reuse themselves, but you can get back your leather coats, get back your cherished keepsakes. Those are both items. Get back any spent flashlights, lots of stuff.
Yeah, there's just a lot of like small efficient things you can do with William Webb with Calvin.
Yeah.
All right. We got Sweeping Kick. It's a spirit, baby. And this card is sick. So it's add your foot to your skill value for this attack. This attack deals +1 damage. If you succeed, you automatically evade the attacked enemy. So just more damage, and your foot and your fist skills are usually going to be the exact same thing. So like that's just going to be a big number, and you got to get some good damage output in the process. We have Dauntless Spirit, where while it's in your hand, commit to a test, you gain brain icons equal to your fist and fist icons equal to your brain. This can help you to match whichever one is higher. So for example, if your fist was higher, but you're doing a brain test, you can use your fist to then balance that out, and vice versa. Or if they're both high, this just can commit for like 4 or 5 symbols, which is good. We have Fire Extinguisher 3. I think this card is really, really nice. The top half is just good damage output. It only costs 2 to put into play too, so it's really cheap. And then the bottom half, which is just the, you can discard it to evade. Automatically evade all enemies engaged with you. You can exile it instead of discarding it to discard each non-elite enemy evaded by this effect. if you don't even never exile it, but just like you're at the end of a scenario and a monster showed up that you just like don't want to deal with, you can just spray him with the fire extinguisher and get out of here. Like, it's a good weapon, and I think you could consider it. It's a little less exciting than something like the sledgehammer, but still just a good option for you to consider. We got Plucky. Gives you brain and book. You can spend resources to increase your brain in your book, and it also soaks for 3 horror and 1 damage. Notably, non-direct damage and horror must be assigned to Plucky before it can be assigned to your Investigator card, so it actually is kind of saving your life in the process. If you can't die, unless it's direct when this is in play. It's just a good card. It's 0 to put in play. It's fast. Bumps up skills. It's nice. Then we got Fend Off, and that's Kelvin in the art. So in theory, this card should be good in him. Play when a non-elite enemy spawns your location, that enemy attacks you, then automatically evade that enemy and attach Fend Off to it. That enemy can't ready. Can confirm this does seem pretty good in Kelvin. This goes back to even like the toe-to-toe that Travis was talking about on the last slide. It's an enemy is attacking you and you're solving that problem. So you're not only buffing your stats, but you are also dealing with that enemy, which is good because then you're actually contributing to the game while also getting better in the process. We have Blood. We'll have Blood. So this is a 1 cost, fast, play after an enemy attacks you, max 1 per attack. Damage and or horror from this attack cannot be assigned to ally assets. For each point of damage and or horror you took from this attack, draw 1 card. So if you are looking for some card economy, Blood can do that for you. The only thing is that like later on in the campaign, or like when you have a lot of trauma and you have everything, or like even in a scenario when you have a bunch of damage and horror on you, this card notably will be worse because your Jessica Hyde and Pete Sylvester can't save you from this. However, it can still be assigned to things like your teddy bear or your protective gear. So there are still ways to get around that, even if you do have a lot of damage already on you. Protective gear, it's going to soak for 3 and 3. That is a lot of soak for 2 experience and 4 cost. And when you draw a Hazard Treachery, you can deal 1 damage and horror to protective gear to cancel that card's revelation effect. I have a video breaking down which hazards appear in which campaign, and it's good in some, not great in others, but it still just represents 3 and 3 soak for you. And then last one here, we have Prophetic. This is a 3 cost asset. It comes with 2 resources. They are refreshed each round, and you can spend those resources on Fortune, Spell, or Spirit cards. And during a skill test on a Fortune, Spell, or Spirit, you can spend a resource from Prophetic to get +2 skill value for this test. Spirit is one of his traits so that you can use in his deck. So that's all obviously really good. One thing this also does is if you want to play Dark Horse, you can run a Prophetic and you can actually still play your Ward of Protections in the Mythos phase because it's at the start of each round. They are replenished, and then that's the Mythos phase right after that. So this is really good if you wanted to do a Dark Horse deck, but it's still just economy and pump otherwise. Bryn, these guys, they're yours.
Oh, we got the ice picks. Yeah, I don't know if you guys have ever seen an ice pick in the meat world, but like they're pretty heavy and they got a real point on them. I don't understand how this helps you investigate, but that's what it does. It's a 1-costed asset. It takes up your hand slot. It's fast. During a skill test while fighting or investigating, you can exhaust it to get +1 to your skill value for the test. For the level 1 version and for the level 3 version, it's much the same, where you can still get that same +1 to your test. However, if you succeed, you may discard it to either have the attack deal +1 damage, or discover 1 additional clue. Obviously, you can only choose the relevant ones for the thing. You can't investigate and do +1 damage to the location because it wouldn't do anything.
Don't take that, alleyway.
Yeah, right. Got him.
Yeah.
We got the Precious Mementos. So they're mirrored versions of each other. One is a future life, one's past life. They're both pretty solid. For 4 XP and 3 cost, they take up your accessory slot, and they soak for 3 and 3. And additionally, As a reaction, after you fail a skill test by 2 or more, you can exhaust it to heal 1 damage from it, or when you succeed at a skill test by 2 or more, you can exhaust it to heal 1 horror from it. The other one is the opposite thing. They're both kind of neat. If you have both of them with a Relic Hunter in play, then, like, suck it, Pete and Jess. You guys don't even count anymore. Probably. That might actually still be better, but we're not going to get into that.
Why not both?
Yeah, I mean, if you have both, how much damage, like...
Yeah, pretty much only direct damage kills you then.
Yeah, you could sit there and you could stare down, like, Urmordoth and just be like, give me your best shot, pal.
And then he does, and you die, and you're like, oh, frick.
Yeah, and then you die. And you're just like, but at least it was cool.
Yeah.
Oh, I got the Earthly Serenities. First one is a level 1, 2-costed spell asset with uses 4 charges. As an action, you test Brain 1. For each point you succeed by, you may spend 1 charge to heal 1 damage or 1 horror from an investigator at your location. If you succeed by 0, you lose a resource. Oh no! The level 4 version is very similar. It has 6 charges. You get to test Brain 0, which is one of the rare instances of a 0 difficulty test. For each point you succeed by, you may spend 1 charge to heal 1 damage or 1 horror an investigator at your location. If you succeed by 0, lose 2 resources again. Either way, both of these things are pretty solid. It doesn't have to be you that you've included these to heal. Though it certainly doesn't hurt that it can be.
Yeah, that's kind of like probably the nicest part of it. Like, say you're like a little bit worried about your horror, you can heal 1 horror from you and then the rest to someone else. Or even just spend the 1 charge, even if you succeed by a bunch, right?
This is the truth.
Yeah.
They're probably really cute with the precious mementos. However, bear in mind that cute and good, often 2 different things.
Yeah. Yeah, Bryn can tell you that. So people on YouTube might be wondering that we haven't included In the Thick of It here with Calvin Wright. In the Thick of It is a permanent that you take 2 trauma and it gives you 3 experience. Before I talk about it, Travis, did you purposely not include it in the thing? I'm just curious.
Not include which, sir?
In the Thick of It.
Maybe.
I think
possible. I just forgot because it wasn't red, and I did comb through everything looking for the spirit ones because Arkham DB doesn't always catch those. But and sometimes I stop looking when I get to the neutrals. There's a bunch of investigator specific stuff, right?
I get you.
It's possible I forgot.
So In the Thick of It, I'm gonna say right now I'm actually kind of glad it's not here. I'm sure people will disagree with this in the comments, but I actually think you don't really need to expedite the trauma process on Calvin. He'll do it himself, right?
Agreed.
You don't need to start at 1 and 1 because now you can only take, you're taking that much little damage. What are you going to put into your deck to counteract this? You're going to put in, I don't know, maybe you'll grab maybe a Spirit of Humanity in the Tarot, right? It's not going to hurt you to do that after your first scenario is done. Kelvin is going to he's going to struggle in that first scenario even if you have that 3 XP or not and that 1 trauma and for each of the stats. You don't need to expedite it. He's going to do it himself. And I imagine that it's actually potentially more stressful because that 3 XP is not going to do too much. You might be thinking, oh, that's 75% of this precious memento, so I don't need to get that in the future. But I think that kind of that thinking is not great. So I can understand why people play it, but I personally think it's better outside of Calvin, not using it in him.
I also probably wouldn't play in Calvin just because from our experience, having played Calvin, you end up retiring. You took too much trauma.
Yeah, he just dies.
If it had been here, we would definitely have been talking about why you shouldn't play it.
Yeah.
Along with why you could.
Yeah.
Because, how many times can you you're gonna draw your weakness. It's gonna happen. No matter what you do, it's not just gonna go away. And you're going to die sometimes.
Mm-hmm.
And that's also going to happen. And you got to make sure that you have enough trauma available to absorb that and keep playing.
Yeah.
Though it is kind of cute if you want to play with the thermos.
Yeah. Yeah. But
say
remember
that.
what Bryn just said about cute and good. They are in different rooms.
Yeah, the Venn diagrams do not often overlap.
All right. Well, with all this, Travis, I'll throw these return 2 cards to you.
Sure. We got upgrade Rabbit's Foot, which is good for similar reasons. The first one is like a little awkward with Calvin, where the later in the campaign you get where you'd be spending experience on this, the better your stats are. But you can still get some value out of it, especially since it'll help you dig for your until the end of the time to ensure you don't just explode to your traumas. We got Rise to Occasion, level 3. Look, I'll be honest, I don't remember why this one's better than the level 0 one, but it is, and if you're playing level 0 one, you should look at playing this one, okay?
The difference between the two of them is that the level 0 one gives you 3 wild, no matter what. And this one gives you 2 wild plus X wild up to 3 wild, where that is the difference between your skill value and the test.
Yeah,
so like with Calvin, yeah, you got zeros.
Yeah. Yeah, if you haven't picked it up by now, he has zeros in his stats.
The numbers are bad. Then we got Blood Eclipse. It's level 1 spell and spirit. Costs 1 mana to play. As an additional cost, you take 2 damage, then you use your brain to take your punch, which is like a little bit awkward the way Calvin's ability works, but what can you do? You get +2 brain, you deal +2 damage with this attack. It's just a nice way to get damage. You probably have a way to soak the damage that it deals to you, so. We got Alter Fate level 1. This one isn't fast, and it costs 3. And you can't play it during any player window.
Yeah, or any lightning bolt window.
Any lightning bolt window, yeah. But it does still do the thing that you want it to do a lot of the time. So. Then we got 9 Rods. This one is another sort of failsafe for Calvin, where you can use it to shuffle away encounter cards that would be particularly dangerous to you. You know, you're not sure you can pass the wrong remains, or it's just like absolutely imperative that you don't explode this Mythos phase. Throw that away and risk getting something else. You know?
Yeah. It is a shame that the other red tarot card is so good for Calvin. Because the other one is literally unplayable outside of him.
Yeah. And last we got our upgrade trial by fire, which this isn't. Justin.
Is it the wrong one? Oh, frick, it's the wrong one.
Yeah.
Told you, as I said, as we get near the end, there's always something.
Yeah, so like the other one, I think lets you set all of your skills to 5 or something like that until the end of the turn. Or you can put one of them to 7 or all of them to 5, I think. And obviously that just makes you an absolute stat monster. You can roll up to that one circle test and Circle Undone.
And just destroy it.
Just juice all of your stats.
Test 40 to 20.
They're like, yeah, I got 20, me too. Oh.
So sick. Oh, and then you play the Against All Odds, reveal 20 tokens.
Oh my god, dude.
Unstoppable.
Just get to pick what you want.
Alright, on to the last little wave of things, the Investigator starter decks. We have the level 0 stand together. This is a staple, you can find it in the video. It's just resources. Resources are good. We got Get Over Here, it's a spirit and a tactic. Engage and fight. You can choose a non-animated connecting location, bring it to you, and fight it, while also saying Get Over Here like Scorpion. It'll be really cool, trust me. We got the Derringer, which you can find in our weapon video down below. If you're just looking for a weapon to shoot with, the Derringer is not a bad option, because if you failed, you reload the gun. Survivors have finally figured it out. You can reload the gun. We got Old Keyring, helps you get clues. It's like the flashlight, where you also, it helps early on in the campaign, especially because when your stats are so low, you can cheese them off of a low shroud location. We have the level 0, A Test of Will. It's not a sure thing to get rid of this. So like if you're going to a test of will, like in the other ones where it's like a sure like ward of protection clone, but it's still like you'll probably succeed it, especially like when you want to play it, which is later in a scenario where your brain is going to be higher and possible to get rid of it. There's the upgrade to get over here. It's just better. It's faster. And it's up to 2 locations away. It's just improved. We got the counter punch. It's a spirit. Play when an enemy attacks you before resolving that attack. You get to attack that enemy, +2 fist, deal +1 damage. And you get to punch that guy, that ghoul, right in the face. And then we got Chair's Keepsake level 1. This now soaks for 4 instead of 2. And when it's defeated, you exile it, which isn't really a problem, because it only costs 1 XP, and then you can just bring it back. It's like super efficient for soak. All right, Bryn, why don't you finish off the notable cards for Calvin?
We got the upgraded leather coat. See everything that Justin said about the Cherish Keepsake, but turned it into heart damage. It's the same thing. Takes up your body slot. Not really much competition for that. We got Deja Vu. Is this card good? I actually don't know, but I am pretty sure I've seen this cat someplace before. It's a permanent in between scenarios. In between 2 scenarios of a cat. In between scenarios, when you're upgrading cards, you get to reduce the experience cost to repurchase up to 3 cards that you exiled during the last scenario by 1 each. I can't actually tell you if this is good because I've never tried to do that. I imagine it entirely depends on the type of cards you are exiling. Like maybe if you're using fight as a +3 damage or +2 3 damage fight option, that might be very strong. And like more efficient than just rebuying the flare over and over again. Got upgraded Test of Will. This one is probably better in every possible way, except for the fact that it costs 2 to rebuy if you exile it. It costs no money. It's fast. You play when an investigator at your location draws a non-weakness treachery card. You cancel the card's revelation effects. Then you get to test Brain 3. If you fail, you got to exile this Test of Will. But big numbers is like kind of the thing we're trying to do. So, not a bad thing. Got the upgraded Derringer. It's just better. It costs 1 less. It comes with an extra bullet. If you fail the fight, not only do you get to reload the gun, but you were watching the guy and you saw how he dodged it. So, you'll be better this time.
That's Bryn's headcanon. Mine is you get better bullets, but that's just me.
We got the level 3 Lucky. It's a staple. This card's just sick.
It's gross, man.
Yeah. The difference here is that you get to play when any investigator at your location would fail a skill test, and you get +3 instead of +2. Still draw. The performing investigator still draws the card.
Yeah.
It's just good. It's just good. We got the level 2 Unexpected Courage. This card is mostly not good, except when your numbers all suck. And you want to avoid damage, like massive damage from things like rotting remains. That's where this card excels. You can throw it at all kinds of tests like that care about how much you failed by. And when, early in a scenario when you're like, well, I've only got 1s, you could throw this at it and be like, cool, I only took 1 damage instead of 3 because 3 is a lot. And will tax your ability to soak. Exist into the lake.
Heck yeah.
Sure, if it doesn't do anything extra if you succeed, but that's okay.
Yeah.
You passed.
You passed.
That's all good. That's its own reward.
It is. Yeah, don't get so greedy, gamers. You're like Justin playing Arkham Horror 2nd Edition. What, you mean I don't get a present for passing this test at the Unvisited Isle? What the frick? Alright, Travis. Why don't you close this video out with the deck list?
Yeah, sure. It's like pre-standard Calvin deck. We got our opening Pierre Celesters and leather coats. Just dying isn't fun. Perseverance also helps out with that. Got some meat cleavers to do things with, as well as track shoes. You might end up like punching it for 1 damage for a little bit, but this is intended more as a flex list, I believe. You make use of your high book to pick up a couple odd clues as well. Rabbit's Foot can help you churn through your deck. Got 2 tests of wills to ward off some of those really dangerous treacheries as you get to the later game. Your brain's higher. It's a lot less scary to make the brain test on a test of will than it is on Rhyme Remains. Lucky's just good cards. Same thing with Scrounge for supplies. Resourceful as well. Take Heart's a little bit more card draw and some economy. Stand Together also fills out your economy. And then just like a handful of cards that are good in Calvin, as discussed earlier.
Heck yeah.
Nothing too fancy here.
Yeah, so with Kelvin, you're kind of just like the game plan's kind of as it is. You take damage, and then you stop taking damage and hopefully don't die. And use your big numbers to do hopefully big things. A good chunk of your deck is probably going to be devoted to staying alive, which makes it so that like card draw and card filtering like the Rabbit's Foot and like Take Heart and Drawing Thins are so good in him because you need a lot of pieces to get moving. So it's just something to be aware of when you play him. That's Kelvin. Huge thank you to all of our patrons for supporting the channel. For everyone who is watching here on YouTube, thank you so much for your support. Have a great one. We'll be back in 2 weeks for another Guardian Expanded Guide. I think it's Leo Anderson or Tommy Muldoon. It's one of those two. So get ready for that. Bye!